So in this video, what we're going to do is show you how to cut a pipe that is too long for the bed of the pipe processor. Any pipe that's under 8 feet, you can cut both ends with one program, but anything that's over 8 feet, you can still cut both ends. You can still, fish mouth and do everything that you can do with the other tabs, but you have to do it a little bit differently. You have to cut one end at a time. And what we're going to do is walk you through how it is that you do that. So the first thing that you do is you go to the overlength tab of this particular screen set, okay? And in this tab, you have the parameters that you need to enter for a single cut, not for two cuts. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to do a pipe that is approximately 10 feet long. We'll look later. The length doesn't make much of a difference for the programming in this particular case, just because of the procedure that you use to cut the pipe. The length never gets figured into the G code. But the parameters that you do need in order to do this are obviously the cut pipe OD and the cut pipe ID. You need the angle at which you are going to cut the pipe. And if you're going to be doing a fish mouth cut, you need the diameter of the pipe that you're going to be fish mouthing into. So now in this particular case, we're going to be cutting a 1.9 inch pipe ID because it's an 1.5 skid 40 pipe. The ID is 1.61 inches, and we're going to do a 90-degree cut, a 90-degree fish mouth actually, into a 1.9 inch OD pipe. So data's in there, okay? And all we need to do now is click on the fish mouth button, and we're going to call this end 1, and okay. Now, that's how you program one end of the pipe. If the other end of the pipe is exactly the same, then you're done with the programming. If, for example, the other end of the pipe, you weren't going to do a 90-degree angle, but instead you were going to do a 34-degree angle, you would put that in there, and you'd hit the fish mouth button, and this one, you could call end 2. And then it's generated the G code for the second end. But in this particular case, we're only going to do, both ends are going to be the same. Both ends are 90 degrees, framing into a 1.9 inch diameter pipe. So we'll only use the end 1 G code when we do this cutting. So the next thing that you want to do is go over to the Run Program screen. And right now we have end 2 entered into the program for the program that's going to be run. That's not the program that we want to run. We want to run end 1. So we're going to come here, we're going to close that out. We're going to load end 1. And I may not have been particularly clear in earlier videos, but let's close this out. But when you click on these buttons and you're saving a program, where it gets saved to specifically is in the Mach 3 G code folder. So Mach 3 is going to be set up on your C drive. And so you go to your C drive, you go to your Mach 3, you go to your G code, last modified, and end 1 is the G code that we're looking for, okay? And so now everything's loaded into the computer, it's ready to go. What we're going to do is we're going to go over and we're going to put a pipe into the machine, come back and press start cycle and show you how it is that we do this. So let's go over to the machine. So we start by marking the cut lengths of the pipe. As was the case with all of the other programs we've run, this length is the measurement from the center line of the first pipe we are framing into to the center line of the second pipe we are framing into, measured along the axis of the pipe that we're cutting. We'll use these marks to line up the plasma torch in the machine. So the first thing that we're going to do once we get to the machine, we have this pipe now sitting in the rollers. What we're going to do is put on an angle finder. We're going to clamp the angle finder to the machine, and then we're going to zero out that angle finder. And what this does is it allows us to put the pipe back in exactly the same orientation for the rotary axis. So when we spin this pipe around after the first cut, we'll end up using that in order to zero out the pipe in the chuck. And now what you're going to see me doing is jogging the x-axis along with the z-axis in order to line up the plasma torch with the cut line that we marked on the pipe just a moment ago. And if we've lined up the torch properly, it's going to look something like this. Okay, so now that we have the pipe loaded into the machine and we have the plasma torch lined up with the mark that we made earlier, everything on here is zeroed out. So all that's left to do is run the cycle. So we come down here to cycle start and start the program. What I'm doing here is using the angle finder to make sure that when I put the pipe in the chuck for the second end, that it is that top dead center of the pipe is in exactly the same position as it was when I put it in the chuck to cut the first end. As I did with the first end, now all that I'm doing is just lining up the torch with the mark that I made at the beginning. Okay, now that we've got the second end in place, second end loaded into the machine, what we need to do now is zero out all of our DROs. As it happens, N1 is the same as N2 in this particular case, so we don't need to change out the G code. All that we need to do is press cycle start and cut the second end of the pipe. So here we go. So in the end, the pipe that you saw us cut was incorporated into this material rack. The pipes that we cut are the horizontal pipes that span in between the vertical members of this rack. And in fact, all of the pipe used to fabricate this rack was processed on this pipe processor. So I hope that you found this video helpful and are now confident that you know how to program a pipe that's longer than, or program and cut a pipe that's longer than the bed of the machine.